Let me ask you a few questions to get our process underway here. Uh, Ray,
Yeah.
uh, you're a man with many talents, a musical background, traveled a lot. Um, Tell me, what were some of your early influences as as a young writer, as a young person who was engaged in literature?
Um, I read voraciously as a youth, and um, a lot of it was just uh, youthful readings. But there were two particular authors that um, had significant influences on me, and one was James R. Tolkien with The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I have my own copies. I've read the books, and um, I and the other one was Catch 22, which was came out in the when I was probably a junior in high school. I'm probably thinking 1966, maybe 67. So I was probably a freshman in high school, and those made huge differences for me. Um, oh, get rid of this timer here. But we are those were big influences on me, and it helped me to think not only straightforward about what was being said or done or represented, but to move into a creative play. And that I think those two books really made a big difference in my future endeavors as a writer. I never really considered myself a writer until about 11 years ago, although I've been writing poetry all my life, all my adult life.
Now, let me ask you a question that I haven't asked before, but I think since you've been a person who is very much music was part of your life, what do you think about the relationship between song lyrics and poetry?
I think a good set of lyrics is a poem. Uh, if we turn the Wayback Machine on and go back to Tom Petty, there was some really excellent poetry in his singing and the lyrics that came forward for his tunes. Same's true for Pink Floyd. Really thoughtful lyrics in almost everything Pink Floyd's put out. Look at the song from Dark Side of the Moon, which came out in 1973, called Money, still being played on the radio today, still as relative then as it is today, especially today with the current political situation. So um, I think a good song is a great poem.
Now, let me ask you this. Some of us found opportunities to read in poetry groups, in reading groups, and others, didn't really blossom in this arena until the COVID period. Did you ever find yourself availing yourself of, say, group poetry readings, clubs, or libraries and stuff like that?
Um, Before COVID, yes. I attended my first writing group where we discussed things and read things in 2017, I think. And um, those guys, there were five of us in this group. It was all centered around what I still think of as my home bookstore in Greensboro, North Carolina, and Scuppernong books. And anyway, we got to get our first to get together there at that bookstore, and we continued for actually quite a while until my wife got very sick, and then I exited the group.
Let me ask you this. Um, did performing your poetry, obviously as a musician, you have a experience performing and you faced all those things. Did you have performance anxiety when you were reading poetry aloud?
I have performance anxiety every time I perform still. I mean, it's not to the point where I'm shaking in a corner. It's not to the point where I have to sedate myself. No, no, no. But I'm always concerned about, have I rehearsed this enough? And I'm always concerned about my projection. All these years, if I don't project well, back when I was a trombone player, if I didn't have the intonation that day, or I didn't, the projection of it was a big consideration. And as reading my poetry out to on Zoom events and live events, which I do also, I'm very concerned about having rehearsed that work beforehand. And most things that you've heard me read, I've rehearsed before I read them.
Oh, no
Um,
kidding.
yeah. So, but I don't consider myself a spoken word poet. I'm not. I'm not one of those guys that carries on and on and on about a particular, perhaps racial or discriminatory or political, or I'm just not one of those people concerned with rhythm, and I'm more concerned with content. So I'm not a spoken word. I don't consider myself a spoken word poet.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, since we've touched already on the whole idea of, the COVID arena, if you will, the COVID poetry experience. Do you did you find yourself surprised in any way? Did you see something that you hadn't seen before? Was performing poetry in a Zoom space? Oh, did you learn something from that? Was there something unique that you discovered when you did that?
Yeah, yeah. I always consider myself open to new experiences, and it's one of the things I take great joy in. And the very first open mic conducted via Zoom was an international one with uh, Kumar Prasanna's group, the Fertile Brains,
Right.
and um, that was a wide eye opener because I went there having a poem or two that I thought maybe somebody would want to hear, and I went to there, and there's people from all over the world there, and there's representations of world poetry there, which I found just delightfully eye opening. Um, I wanted one of my goals, and I live into my goals, is to be known globally for my poetry. I know it's a big aspiration. It's not something that's going to happen just because I wake up in the morning. And so I'm taking this approach. Uh, Kumar Prasanna's uh, place, he's been doing this for 6 years. And far before I ever became a humble participant, and I'm still a humble participant because the people that he has read there, you and I met there, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, um, I have such respect for. They do work that is different than mine. I center around a few things, whereas some of these other folks that are on the Zoom events center on other very different things, as important, as strong and virile, for lack of a better word. Um, to go into other Zoom events, which I participate with, I try to do about 4 a week. Uh, from New York City to North Carolina to India and back again. Um, all this is about satisfying my goal, working toward my end that I'm working toward. Um, I'm under no illusions that poets are going to be rich. I'm under no illusions about that part, but I have.
Yeah, I'm really shocked, man. I was really hoping.
I really appreciate the opportunity to hear other poets speak. There's some really um, amazing people that I've come in contact through the Zoom events, um, that I have such incredible respect for. Marianne Treft is a Canadian gal who writes amazingly. You've interviewed a few people that like Teresa. I'm going to say her last name wrong. Birsch.
Yeah.
Uh, she's an amazing writer. And there's some guys out there too that Neil Dutswani. I was like, wow, how do I, that's really amazing what he does. And Clive Ostman in England,
Yeah. Yeah.
Finn Hall in Scotland. I mean, if I hadn't taken the time to be on these Zoom events, which there is a time involvement. I mean, there is.
At least we're not driving there, right?
Yeah, but getting to know these people that write so well is humbling. It's really a learning experience for me.
All right, let me ask you this. This is what I call a process question. Now, there are some poets who argue that unless you are driven by inspiration, put that pen down. Don't force it. Now, there are others on the other end of the spectrum completely who say, look, you got to write every day. If you want to be ready for the muse to drop by, you better polish that craft so that you're ready when it happens. Now, in that spectrum from writing every day to only writing when you're forced to, where do you fall in there?
Well, I think I think I've got to I've got to say that I'm doing a lot of both of those. For example, if I'm driving down the road going somewhere and I have an idea to write, I will pull over and I will either dictate it into my phone or I will write it on a piece of paper. If I have my iPad in the car, I'll do that because that's what kind of my preference there is typing into the iPad. But I also practice writing every day. My process is that when I get up in the morning, I pad over to the coffee machine. I go into what I consider my library in my home and sit in my big blue chair and I write down my dreams. If I can't remember my dreams, I write down uh, 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 muse take that pen because this is on paper and I just write. I just start writing, and sometimes it's trash, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it adds to my monthly collection of poems that I keep, and sometimes it's just dream. And so I'm in both of those. I, I know there's rigor have to satisfy. I know intuitively that you have to satisfy that rigor in order to get all of the writing out that you don't want anybody else to see, and then to arrive at the strong stuff. I will tell you that my very best poetry, I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, I don't have to change 3 or 4 words in the whole thing. And it just came out of me, and there it is. And that's some of the selections that I have prepared for you today. But the other side of that is that there are some things that I have written in the morning that I come back to later and decide, well, maybe I need to move this stanza up or down, or maybe I need to change, what am I really trying to do here? So I'm keeping the strong core. But then again, it's like you say, I've come to know a few people who I respect in their writing, that they spend days on a poem preparing it for public. I've never done that in my life. Spend days on a poem preparing it for the public. I spend days of my life preparing books to print, but not a particular single piece.
I am speaking to the very talented author, Mr. Ray Whitaker, of Points West in the Colorado Rockies, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay, my next question, sir. Are there themes that you find yourself returning to again and again?
Yes, there are two main focuses of my work, and sometimes they fall together. They blend together. But I've been deeply appreciative of our natural world all my life. At once had aspirations to be a forester, but that didn't work out. I became a trombone player instead. But the love of nature that I have continuously all my life, I still have. And um, even at my senior citizen status, well, that's weird to say. Um, I still I still go camping. I do. I hit the woods regular during the warm months, and I write. I take my iPad with me. I write while I'm up there. I see something that really inspires me, and then fortunately, my green-haired muse takes over and makes that inspirational vision I have into a decent poem, or really good poem sometimes. Most I appreciate those things. The other one is the other approach that I take is that I have examined who I am writing for. Is it just inspiration out of the intuitive nature I have, or is it some intentionality for the listener? So I don't mean that I'm going to write a poem about uh, changing the cartridge in my ink pen. I'm, I'm talking about, do we write for Americans? Do we write for global? Do we write for women? Do we write for men? Do we write for both? Who am I writing for? My goals are to write for the common person, and the footnote that to that is the global common person. I would like my poetry to be read globally and understood globally through all those different cultures that we humans have developed. So those are the two things, nature and global.
Okay, next question. Is poetry important?
Poetry is important both personally and culturally. Poets have been honored in different cultures around the world for thousands of years because of their vision and because of their ability to see what other people do not see. There's a saying I love about that the reasons governments fail is that they listen to their politicians more than they listen to their poets. And so that's the importance culturally. The personal importance is also more than just Ray's personal importance or Rick's personal importance. It's in the ears of the listener and the eyes of the viewer, for example, with the Zoom. But if you deliver a well-rehearsed poem that is a really good poem to begin with, whoever's watching you, whether you're in a live audience or a Zoom audience, is going to be affected by that. They're going to hear something in that. It might only be one phrase out of a whole page of poetry that's going to go zing, and they're going to incorporate that into their daily experience. So yeah, both culturally and personally, I think poetry is very important. And I'd like to say one more thing about that is that here in our United States, we don't pay attention to poetry like they do in almost nearly every other culture in the world. For some reason, we have let it drop. And like 80 years ago, you could open almost any newspaper and find a poem as a part of the regular representation of what a newspaper represented. You don't see that today. And when you do see it, you see it in magazines like the New Yorker. And if you're not on the end of it, like you don't know people there, you won't get printed by them. So I regret that about the United States. I do. I think the United States needs to develop more poetry and have more people allow that in.
Well, I agree with you, and I think you make a good point. And I too would like to see more literature included in poetry. But I will say this: if poetry wasn't truly appreciated, you wouldn't hear it in jingles. You wouldn't hear it in chants at sports events. You certainly wouldn't hear it in chants in the military
Yep,
because when they want to juice them up, there's
yep,
nothing like a rhyme, there's nothing like a chant, and a chant is a poem.
yep,
And
yep.
so it's kind of it's a backdoor brag, if you will, to say that well, poetry is important and they use it, but it's given no cultural credence.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with everything you said. The people in our country that make a living as poets came through the the lens of educator, like PhD kind of people who
Right.
were on boards and taught at universities and that sort of thing. And those are the people that get filtered into poet laureate status of the United States. And those are excellent poets. I mean, I have I have Tracy K. Smith's book here that I just finished. She was the 22nd poet laureate of the United States. Lovely work. Oh, you know, some of it just very heart wrenching and all of it very great. Billy Collins, for example, 2003 to 2005, I think he was a poet laureate in the United States. Both of them are academics. I think it's unfortunate that everything has to come through that lens, whereas people like that are currently out there speaking their work, I'm not so certain that they're going to ever reach that kind of elevation.
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you feel that poets have a responsibility to address social issues?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
I
thank you.
still have thoughts burning through my gray matter here about which direction I'm going to take a political poem to. I've written three or four, shared a couple of them in New York. I love the New Eurekan Cafe. Uh, I'm kind of a regular there, and but I think poets have a responsibility be, because of the things that we discussed earlier about people, the cultural importance of poetry, and and the individual importance of poetry. That's where that writing and speaking to is so incredibly relative.
Okay, let me ask you this. Um, what makes a good poet?
A good poet, I think a good poet is an intelligent person, first and foremost. I think if you don't have the gray matter being engaged, then you're going to end up with Hallmark card stuff, which I don't think is good poetry. Um, the the person who engages in their creative writing, whether they're educated or not, is an intelligent person, and they are willing to see the world in a way that others don't. They're giving themselves that permission to see the world not just in this is right or this is wrong, but why.
Okay, let me ask you this. One of the other, there's all kinds of tools that a poet can use. One of them, I'm wondering, what do you think about the importance of narrative in a poem? Does a poem have to have a narrative?
Well, I think you're asking whether there's a direction that the poem is going in. Honestly, I don't I have no advanced degree in creative writing. I think that every poem has a narrative, but whether it is obscure in its narration, or whether it's direct, forcefully directed in its direction. Too many directed in that sentence. But I think every poem has a narrative, but whether or not it is like you're reading a book, that kind of narrative, or you're hearing a news report, that kind of narrative, or that's a very different sort of narrative.
Okay. I have some friends who write what I call chime poetry. There's a metaphor here, there's a metaphor over there, and a metaphor over there. And if you want to force a line between them, well, go ahead. But I, as a person who grew up with, um, uh, should I say, a somewhat defensive attitude about poetry, feel that I want to take them someplace. I want to go from here to there. There's a crescendo, there's a payoff, all of that stuff. But it's not necessary. But I think it often helps. And I've always tried to, uh, you know, hearing from an anti-intellectual side of the universe. Poetry is this ephemeral, useless thing over there. It's kind of like the closet of literature, and poets are relevant. So I work at being a narrative poet. Okay, let
Yes,
me ask you this: what kind of reading do you turn to for fun?
just for fun.
Yeah.
I have been reading other poets for the last several years, to the almost to the exclusion of a regular book. I've got an easy 120 poets on my library whose books are in there. I have your book. I'll probably get your next one when you get ready to put one out. Um, but I don't read. When I was a child and a youth, I read voraciously almost anything I could get my hands on, and I don't do that anymore. Um, Poetry has reached my heart, and I intend on keeping it there. um, I do have some. I just finished N. Scott Momaday's book, um, Native American Pulitzer Prize winner. We lost him last year. It's unfortunate. I have Rachel Eakin's book here, which I'm wading through. I've come to know her through my work with Masticadores Canada. I told you about Tracy Smith. Um, Behind me, all of those books are poetry books.
No kidding. Okay, my last question, sir. Do you have a question for me?
Do I have a question for you?
Yeah.
What motivates you to interview poets? Huh?
I love them to death, man. To me, talking with an artist, talking with a poet is a fairy tale, is a merry-go-round, it's just a thrill ride because I like the way the creative mind works. I love the fact that poets, we hear so much drivel. We hear so much commercially driven sound,
Yeah.
that when you talk to a poet, when you hear a poet, they are giving you the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They are telling you their
Yep.
truth. And that's, man, I can live on that. That's awesome. And I'm sure you got poets on your shelf. There is nothing so engaging and consuming as hearing a poet deliver their own line with the spirit and the gumption and the friggin' energy
Yeah.
that their truth is. Man, that's amazing. And since I worked in commercial media, where I had to put the Bachelor show on, and I had to introduce self-serving politicians and ask them questions that I knew they were going to dodge. I get a chance to talk to poets. Damn, that is good stuff. It's just pure fun, man. Pure fun.
I was wondering, you seem to have such delightfully positive attitude the times I've heard you speak and your writing. And I figured that must be something that has translated into the work that you're doing. And I am deeply grateful to be on your show.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I have Eastern European heritage, and we're a melancholy lot. Okay, by and large, I could give you 5,000 reasons why A will not happen to B when it's fallen into it.
Yeah,
So to me, my I would say accentuated efforts to make light and look positively at the world, it's medicinal. It is truly
right.
medicinal for me.
Yeah.
I used to, as a teenager, I would write in a darkened closet with just enough light for my pen. Okay. And I could tell you how pessimistic I was.
Yeah.
And at one point, I just came to a place in my life, in my heart, where I said, you know what? If you only look for the negative, that's all you're going to see.
Mm.
And a switch was thrown in my life, and I worked differently from then.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah, that's super.
Well, now the best part. I get to turn to Mr. Ray and say, Brother Ray, read some of your fine work. Do the long stuff, brother. Have fun. Wail at it. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I want to start off with a piece that I wrote and that I write with music. Um, I have some friends that are professional jazz musicians here in Colorado Springs, and the leader of the band, Ricky Soom, likes to do multimedia stuff whenever he can. For example, he used to have an artist come and paint during the gig, and then,
Cool.
you know, it was influence. So um, when I approached him, I said, "Do you ever have poets write to your work, your gig that you're playing up there with your band?" He was all for it. So I've done this a dozen times. And the last time I did it was the 27th of December, right after Christmas. And I want to read this one. What we do is that he introduces me at after the second song is played, and he says we both get words from the audience, and we plug this into a piece, and I write like crazy during the first set. And then this first set after the break of between the first set and the second set, he calls me up and I read this thing. So the words from the audience that we got for this piece were live, live life, passionality, happy, amazing, resolutions, inspiring, hot and sandy, prosperous, present, and drop dead legs. So there's no challenge to put all that in a poem, right? So I'm here.
Bravo, sir.
Here's the piece. You may find yourself happy. You may find yourself as amazing to someone else and looking for that hot and sandy beach where being present to the inspiring person you are is possible. And then there are those resolutions, the vows you made on your own personal prayer road, kneeling and then supine, wishing for a better way. That well-being is not a one solution kind of problem. It feeds into nature, nurture, and those lifestyle choices you made because your context made you do it. Your desires are like Robin Williams, moving at the speed of intuitive comedy, dancing with laughter while pulling at you to come hither with a slight tilt of the head, as if to entice to the sense of a laugh button. It's finding your access to joy. You need poets to speak your unspeakables, just as music is medicine. It is a moment of surrender, with our moments of acknowledging attractions, a desire to be in better, damning the elusiveness of discipline. It's a duck-billed platypus grinning, no, laughing at your New Year's resolutions. Resolutions are found somewhere between fiction and nonfiction. I think in the fantasy aisle. You forget to adhere to that poignant vow, and all you are thrown to think is, I'm not doing something. Resolutions are like Darwin's way of proving you are an outlier to the thinking human race. Resolutions are those mischievous raccoons going through your garbage. It is sometimes like a dream living your life, where you are in a place vaguely familiar. The sight is crisp and clear, sometimes passionate, full of symbols little understood. Now you find yourself in a different place, a jump only found in REM sleep. Traveling suddenly down Mississippi's Highway 61. It is summer, hot. You can see heat rising, barely visible waves off the paved, cracked yellow paint lines showing the road ahead, and seeking Robert Johnson's crossroads to feel the moment the devil met, glimpsing the soul's trade for a power unseen. Got to get to that better place. Interpretation sits on that hill way over there with drop-dead legs in a dangerous black miniskirt and an amused smile at your befuddlement. There just might be year of prosperity in front of us. We all are a work in progress. Thank you.
Bravo, bravo. Well done.
Yeah, that's a write like crazy thing, and hope it doesn't have too many problems. But my
Very
next
nice.
piece, my next piece is called Alone. I wrote it a couple years ago, but it's a good piece, and I'd like to read it for you today. Um, so you have to turn your global perspective on for this one. Now, I'm not going to say too much more on the rest of the pieces I have prepared, because I really believe poems need to stand on their own. But exactly the last piece, the impromptu piece, needs a wee bit of explanation as to what you were doing at the time. So, but this one's called Alone. Somewhere an Arab singer's voice cries, lilting, soaring, a single line of melody wafting, climbs and reaches a tonality of Algeria. The Arabic translates to the long, long night without you. The sad melody is crying. He is looking for the companion that has forsaken him for another. This another is independence. The crying singer resonates the depth of his sorrow. He is dreaming of the skies above that rained on both him and her, an event welcomed in the desert. The words are ruining the missing. The wound has been reopened. He wonders if it will ever heal. Maybe if he does not pick at it, keeps clean, fresh bandages on, the scar tissue will form again. He knows a re-injury takes longer to do so. The wound is fresh, as if only yesterday that occurred. The listener remembers, though, having had a full year of disappointment, so many sad events. One was his wife dying, and another dear one nearly a year later. Those fires, tremendous, singed his shirt, then singed his chest hair, burnt off, exposing his heart to the flame. Now there are only empty skies above, walking the earth, sand in his warm sandals. There is a heart stew cooking on the stove of life. He hears the Algerian singing again, off towards the dunes, somewhere over the sand. The desert sand seems to cry along with the Arabic incantation. Three women had captured his heart. He has lost all three over a period of years, to divorce, to death, to independence. The impeccable, unrelenting of pain of loss again. He will survive. Learns a new pace, a new gait, that of walking alone, stepping away, walking into the beclouded future. His dream of love never leaves his head. This gives him the strength to keep on to the horizon. He faces the faces of his past, those loves in any mirror, and knows his heart was not wrong for trying. Thank you.
Bravo. Bravo.
Thank you. This next piece is called 2 to 3, and I'm going to close my door because my dog's decided there's something to bark at upstairs. 2 to 3. Woke up in the middle of the night. Should have been just sleeping. Now there are the swirling grayish purples, the night dreams gone, and in this still, replaced with thoughts of you. Lying there, moved by the coolness, the night air across my chest, my heart moving in the special place of no time, no space. The world has gone away. Now, what's remaining is love's all covering. Anywhere you go, anywhere you are, knowing I will be there, laying, thinking of you. Certain that I'd still be asleep if I had your hip next to mine. In the dark, our naked energy of being to touch, completing the senses, bare skin of having you there next to me. Hearing you say, my sweet, close your eyes, and sensing you move close, there is no worry wanting, no sheer of separation. Feel me here with you. Anesthesia in the darkness, the quiet, enlivening voice, feeling with eyes shut. Oh, oh, go where you are right now, leaving to be with you in this dawn's first light. Thank you.
Lovely. Lovely.
How are we doing on time, bro?
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. This next one is called Distance. There's a line way over there in the hinterlands where his stubbornness waits. This woman is in a courtyard, dipping her hands in the water of a pool, scooping a double handful out. Leaking, the drips between her fingers are many, leaving ripples in the pool. Concentric circles are moving outward. Breathing in her dark-haired beauty, breathing in what she is doing. He understands from whence they came. The surface of the pool has a tension, forming a pattern scene. The ripples travel out, ever diminishing further and further out. They dissipate into the calm water. Hence, the line way over there seems closer, yet his stubbornness awaits still, putting meaning to the actions of the water, standing beside her now, smitten as he knew he was. They talk only with their eyes. So much to say. A breeze now ruffles her gossamer silver gown. It billows gently, moving, shimmering. There's a finality in her eyes, as if there needs to be less of something. His eyes are open for hope, for play, for joy, for standing together. They speak without words, standing in front of the pool. The line way over there is less defined now. His perseverance awaits in quietude and in action. He stands with new strength, shoulders muscular, arms vital, legs like a Roman centurion's. He knows his survival for the battles he has won, his only preparation for this next endeavor. He dips water from the pool, offers it to her. She hesitates. His offering is slowly dripping out of his cupped hands. She touches his fingers with hers, outstretched, and 3 drops fall on them. Her fingers now raised to her lip, tastes of the wetness of his essence. Their eyes are locked, luminous, longing now showing. Her horizon knows that he is her prince. His perseverance knew that she was his queen. They stand together on the marble steps, waving to the crowds. Thank you.
Bravo, sir. Bravo.
Oh, thank you very much.
Let me, I was going to share one with you. And I always feel that if I've asked someone to come and talk a bit and share some of the work, I should at least share one piece of mine that treats on something of what you've spoken of. So this is a piece. I learned that in certain countries there is a tradition of holding what they call a tree hugging championship. And when I think of our friends in Colorado, yourself included, I think of the people who are sensitive and aware of our environment. I think of this. This is a tree hugging champion. The noble upright stock, the bark protects the delicate core, the miracle of both concealed, and the revealed roots, the lush and living canopy, like so many hungry flags, buoyed on the living air. Give us sustenance of fruit, of shade, of beauty. Grant us peace and pleasure. The generous shade, the sweet and powerful nuts, the generous fruit, the sharp, pungent needles. How we cling through and with your strength. How we're made stable by your unbending height. How we're taught by your flexibility. In the mad and merry winds of time, you shelter us, and we are stronger. You feed us, and we give thanks. And you stand through night and storm. We too are proud. And when you fall, you yet nourish those around you. We gain grace and eternity. Another champion tree hugger. I think you're a champion tree hugger, Ray.
Thank you. And what a lovely piece you just read. Lovely.
Please
How are we
continue.
doing on time? We got more
Oh,
time for more
you're
work?
fine. You're fine. If you want to do 2 or 3 more, that's fine.
Okay, let me see my list here. There are there are 3 that I would like to do.
Please do them.
Okay. This one is called The Sacred Places. And I may have read this that you may have heard in a different place, in a different open mic, but this one's called The Sacred Places. They are a forever altar, and visiting them, we are altered. As the voices of those grounds speak louder than any rock band like The Who. These are the stories of our existence, of those that preceded us and matter. Ranging far beyond any one culture, a sanctified parcel strong enough to hold all our feet together again, walking with those that came before. The facets of our thousand cultures is the duty poets have to speak to. For those few seekers live in the place most do not. A place reverently constructed to become the stony reminders of the great deeds mankind is able to do. A place to remember the sky flyers whose bones lay beneath the ground now, while their spirits live on within us. We have had that combat, whether it be one of blood, an outcome, or not. All of us raise mausoleums from the earth to commemorate the building for the inspired. Those that tower above the ground and draw us nigh, buttressed to feel in the taking to our conscious thoughts. Our souls grow because of the many blue depths there, reaching back into the stories, telling the holdings our red hearts have. There are many of us that need to hear those colors. to be in the place of no one speaking, but in the awe of it. The falcon and the bear are of the earth, even as we are. And we always return to it. Thank you.
Lovely. Lovely.
These next two pieces, this next piece is called Endless Range. This set of mountains moves west and wester still till they move north and south, following the six directions. Their crags speak to the sky of the events below in all the rocky languages poorly understood by those bound to 2 feet. Caressing the earth in moccasins, he, or was it she, looks about in the craggy heights for a handhold in the pegamite faces of canyons, the reds, blacks of the moist deeps, those purples of sheerness, keeping the less adventurous at bay. Coming down into the valley below the gorges of distance barely seen, she, or was it he, knows that off in yonder reaches there might be a place in that bigness to drive their thoughts to. An abandoned 2-story ranch house sits the still, its invisible solitude, quiet now of children's voices, the hand-split shingles on the roof still keep the weather out. Push the harsh winter snows and warm summer rains don't touch the singularity of a dry interior, as if waiting for the family to return from whence they disappeared to so long ago. That ranch house, perched on the mountainside, has the cookhouse and porch attached, where a descendant has placed a new tin roof over it and left it again. And there, under that, is the place where the questions may have gotten answered, and maybe not. Perhaps just having raised those inquiries to the meanings of the lives lived under the eaves. Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I'm going to end with this next piece. It is the piece that I submitted. I had to make a video, and I chose to put some music with it from my jazz friends here in Colorado Springs for the 2025 Panorama International Writers Festival. It was aired under their auspices and seemed to be well received. And it's called 3 Waterfalls. Seeing them in winter, frozen mostly, a long, white, cascaded, soft shape is entirely different from the summer mountainside, where the strength of the water tumbling down the 1,400-foot peak brings the feelings of wetness home. That moisture becomes his thoughts, those moving almost dreamlike through the synapses of the brain as the water cascades, becoming image after image, the movie behind the eyelids, one consecutive reel, thoughts connecting with the pictures there, a moist landing pool that is about to become beach. This mountain scrapes the sky with definition. Clouds are barely above it in the blue sky, shaped into the harsh ridge tops above the tree line, yet below it there are the evidences of forest, some removed by snowslides of avalanches, trees lying askew, mowed by God's version of a lawnmower. The lowest of the 3 waterfalls has not lost anything of its forceful downpour. A fine mist congeals at its base, colors floated, wafting one another, moved by an invisible wind. The pool at the base is just out of sight, the tall pines covering the last passages. She is sitting on the creek bank there, where the water has ended up as tributary to a roaring watercourse. The rocks on the bank her only seat. It is the place she goes to have a sense of herself, and the questions she must debate the answers to inside her own ruminations. There are the necessary silences then, only interrupted by the arpeggios of water moving by, or elk talk, the trumpeting heard only faintly, as far off as the answers she seeks. Thank you.
Beautiful, brother. Really beautiful. You have a way of capturing nature that is very, very vivid to my ears. Very vivid. Bravo. Fine work. Fine work.
Thank, thank you, Rick. I appreciate you saying that.
Well, sir, I can't thank you enough for joining me. It's been wonderful to learn a little bit more about my brother Ray. And thank you so much for your generous sharing of your work. Have a wonderful day, brother.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being here, and I like the opportunity that you present to myself and other poets is just really astounding, and I want to really acknowledge you for it.
Thanks so much. Well, take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you soon.
Bye bye.